Well, one of the things I'm concerned about is when you have people in authority, government agencies on the internet and on television talking about, safe places, safe havens, clean needles. It can be taken as an implicit endorsement that this is now safer, that it's okay. And they say, well, we're saving lives here. And that's true. If you're standing there with a paramedic while you're shooting up, you can go to the ER and save probably even more lives if you just start shooting up in the ER. But is that not enabling?
Well,
Of course it is.
the problem with the idea,
Go ahead.
the problem with the idea of enabling is that it is completely falsified by the data. If you look at people who participate in syringe exchange programs, people who participate in prescription heroin programs in Europe are more likely to get into abstinence or other forms of recovery. And so the idea that it encourages people, we've had needle exchange since the 1980s in this country. It does not encourage new users. If a new user walks by a needle exchange, they're going to see some people that are in a pretty sorry state.
But what is the exit strategy? And the answer is there isn't one.
No, that's not true.
No, it is true. There is not an exit strategy.
Yes, there is, because what you do in harm reduction is you welcome people in. And unlike all the other services that homeless people go to, they are just welcomed as, we want you to stay alive. We don't want to change you. We love you as you are. And that helps people develop self-respect. It helps people want to live, and it helps people move towards recovery. The idea that harm reduction discourages recovery in any way is a fundamental misunderstanding of what harm reduction is.
Okay, this is Maya Salovitz, the author of Undoing Drugs, the story of harm reduction and the future of addiction. And Maya is also a former addict who says harm reduction saved her life. I have great respect for you and your research and what you've done. And I respectfully disagree, and you cannot just give the back of your hand to enabling. That's a term we use a lot, and so let's be sure we understand the definition of enabling. It's to make something possible, practical, or easy for someone to do or be, and it often perpetuates the problem. Is there any way that this doesn't fit the definition of enabling?
Of course not. I mean, this is enabling. And by the way, I've been to the Netherlands. I just got back from Portugal. What they're doing in California and around the United States is not what they do in Europe.
This
is a
inaccurate.
complete misrepresentation of what they do.
No, he's
when you
actually-
interview the head of the Portuguese drug prevention program, he says, we do not normalize. They do not enable drug use. They in fact, in the Netherlands, the small number of people who get, the small number of people, it's under 150 in all of the Netherlands who are given prescription heroin. It's after they have absolutely failed with everything else.
And
they use carrots and sticks, they use carrots and sticks to give positive incentives for getting off drugs and consequences for the behaviors that addiction leads to, whether it's homelessness, public drug use, violence, and crime. There's consequences for negative behavior that have been removed.
Well, actually,
in the
no.
United States.
This is wrong, because consequences, okay, addiction is defined as compulsive behavior that occurs in the face of negative consequences. So by definition, consequences wouldn't fix it, otherwise it wouldn't exist, right? So what we know about addiction responds to rewards. And that's why contingency management treatments and why treatments that treat people with dignity and respect.
I wish it was that simple. Look, addiction is a complex disease. It is resistant to treatment, and it is subject to relapse, and it can be deadly.
Yes, I know this.
And to enable people to continue to do this is a very dangerous proposition.
Well, wait, let me just say this. If enabling were a thing that is something to worry about, people would get clean needles, and they would stay using longer, and they would get heroin and they would stay using longer. But that isn't what happens. If you look at the actual research studies, people who participate in syringe exchange programs are 5 times more likely to get into treatment than people who are not given access.
Why did drug overdose deaths go from 17,000 in the year 2000, when I got out of this work, to 105,000 this year?
Do you have a story or a question for me? Click the link in the description and tell me what in the world is going on.